Why are there so many shows starring Muppets and dozens of movies too? They said they'd watch everyone and they mean it. It's something that they've got to do. So now they've pledged you a lifelong commitment. The Muppets, Matthew and Sam.
Welcome to Commitment, the podcast where two friends have vowed to watch all things Muppets. I'm Matthew Gatos.
And live from my basement, it's Sam.
I get it. It's like Saturday Night Live. Well, what's funny is I didn't know you were going to do that. But as soon as you said your name, my plan was to jump into "Come with us now from the bubbling tarpits to the sulfurous wastelands, from the rotting forest to the stagnant mudflats to the Land of Gorch."
That's a good Don Pardo.
I've been practicing for 25 years. But yes, as you might be able to guess from the title of the episode and our two Don Pardo impressions we just pulled out there.
Mine was a Chevy Chase impression. Come on.
Oh, of course. Sorry, I didn't catch on to that. But this week is our Land of Gorch Spectacular. We watched all of the Land of Gorch sketches from the first season of Saturday Night Live, and also a few other TV appearances that will bring us all the way up to September 1976, which is notable because September 1976 is when the first episode of The Muppet Show will premiere. And speaking of that, in our next episode, we'll be diving into The Muppet Show, and we will be covering the first 5 episodes.
But it's a little bit more complicated than just the first 5 episodes. Disney Plus has the episodes in production order, and we're going to watch the episodes in their U.S. airing date order. So the first 5 episodes we're going to watch are Rita Moreno, Jim Neighbors, Sandy Duncan, Ruth Buzzy, and Joel Grey. And you can find a list of the episodes in their release date order on Muppet Wiki. U.S. release date is how we're doing this. It's going to make things a little bit simpler for us, but it might make things a little bit more complicated for you, so sorry about that.
But before that, we'll be taking a week off. Taking a break to, research everything we need to research. But before we get too far into what we watched this week, I had an idea this last week, Sam, and I want to pitch it to you.
Boy.
That is not like a revolutionary great idea. I don't have it fully fleshed out. But I feel like we have time to flesh this out and to pitch it to Disney.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. See? I told you. It's a big idea. So you know how in the 80s, the Muppets did their 30 years of Muppets celebration and everyone came back. You get Yorick, you get Sam, and everyone's there.
Uh-huh.
I think Disney Plus, if they're looking for a thing to do with the Muppets, could just start off with a 70 years of Muppets Disney Plus special.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And that would be in 2025, 2026.
Uh-huh.
So I feel like we're giving them enough time.
Oh, we do have a lot of time.
Yeah. To tell them this is a good idea and then convince them this is a good idea.
Uh-huh.
I think there's something to this era we're in with media right now that nostalgia is such a huge thing, and there's all of this older stuff that we've watched that a lot of people still don't really know exists, and they're taken by surprise when they see old Sam and Friends clips or old Wilkins and Wilkins clips. And I feel like if we did sort of another big retrospective that hasn't really been done in 30 years, that might sort of help inject the Muppets back into pop culture.
I think that is just a marvelous idea, Matt.
And I'm thinking that somebody at Disney is wanting to do more with the Muppets right now than they have done previously, because obviously the Muppet Haunted Mansion is coming out this fall, and then recently on their YouTube channel, the Disney parks have used Fozzie and Animal in 2 different just kind of random videos that they don't need Muppets in. They're not about Muppets, but they just have Fozzie and Animal in them. And I'm oh, okay, cool. They're starting to use these characters more. Great.
Well, okay, so one thing I think that would be really cool with this is if Disney just dumped all the Muppet stuff they had on Disney Plus.
Yes.
As much of it as they had, which, they have all of it, right? Do they own Sam and Friends too?
I don't know. I think a lot of this stuff is weirdly split ownership between Henson and then the local TV stations or SK Meats or different companies own different things. And so I think that's why some of these are probably not out there because they're owned by the CBC or something with like Hey Cinderella. So yeah, I don't know if they don't think it's worth their time to put it on Disney Plus or if they don't own the rights to put it on Disney Plus. But yeah, I think like that could also be like part of this thing is like they want to do this big 70 years of Muppet celebration. They could bring out all these old things, show them off in a like 70 years retrospective type of thing. It feels like a good like reset for them.
Do HBO and Disney get along? Would they have to omit the Sesame Street Muppets entirely?
I mean, I feel like, yeah, because I feel like they definitely have not interacted in a long time.
Yeah.
And I have to
seems that
believe
way
that's
to me,
because
too.
of just like the ownership of everything.
Yeah, because it's like Warner and Disney, right?
Yeah.
Is that the two, yeah.
Not since like Roger Rabbit have those two come together.
Well, okay. We'll write up a treatment for it.
All right, we'll start pitching.
I don't even, and then we'll figure out, we'll go to Disney Incorporated.
We'll knock on the
We'll
front
stand
door.
outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Excuse me.
hello, Mr. Mouse, we're here.
Kermit, are you in there, Kermit? And then maybe someone will buzz us in eventually. Excuse me, we're from Kermitment Podcast.
Yes. Have you heard of us? No? Well, that's fine. We have a good idea for you.
Yeah.
Use the Muppets. That's it. Goodbye. But we have a lot to talk about today, and I have, I think, more notes than maybe I've ever taken about any single episode we've ever done. So let's get into what we watched this week. So let them hear it, Sam.
Some background first. In 1974, Johnny Carson made a command. He wanted to be able to take nights off during the week, so instead of running these like pre-made Best of Carson episodes that would run every weekend evening, they would save those episodes to air on chosen weeknights so that Johnny Carson didn't have to go out and do his thing on a weeknight. So NBC acquiesced because they were afraid he was going to leave soon if they didn't give him what he wanted. But this left them with a huge hole in their schedule for the weekend. And this is a little bit of conjecture, but not really. But since people are not really watching TV as much on Saturday nights, it's like a lower risk place where you can screw around more. So NBC tapped producer Lorne Michaels to make the ultimate screw-around show, a 90-minute experimental variety show called NBC's Saturday Night. The show featured hot young improv comedians, big musical acts, and an anarchic structure filled with political commentary, envelope-pushing skits, and unpredictable, quote, dangerous guests like George Carlin and Richard Pryor. And it would also feature the Muppets. So Jim Henson, per usual around this time, was feeling very sad that the Muppets were just perceived as kid stuff. At least in his mind, they were perceived as kid stuff. But with the birth of SNL, he saw an opportunity to change that. So Bernie Brillstein was Jim's agent, but he also happened to be Lorne Michaels' agent, as well as the agent of a bunch of the not ready for primetime players who were like the regular acting and comedy troupe on the show. So strings were pulled. Demands were made, and NBC told Lorne that the Muppets were going to be on SNL. So for this opportunity, Jim developed his most nasty, most adult puppet show yet, the Land of Gorch. The Land of Gorch is like a far-off planet where a nasty little man named King Plubis rules, who basically just sounds like Rolf or King Gosh Posh from Tinkerty. He is attended to and undermined by his little weasel lackey Scred, screamed at by his horrible wife Puta, mocked by his stoner son Whis, and made horny by a Muppet with boobies named Voss. Almost every sketch ends with the king going to the mighty Favog, who is a giant stone head and also the god of the planet Gorch. And in return for live animal sacrifices, Favog will offer a useless blessing or a terrible bit of advice, and then the skit will be over. And I'm sure we'll talk about most or all of them individually, but none of them are really that, they're fine. But behind the scenes, Writers Guild rules meant that only Saturday Night Live writers could write the Gorch sketches, and those writers did not like doing it. And allegedly, the cast didn't like that there were Muppets on, and the audience maybe didn't like that there were Muppets on, and even the Muppets didn't like that there were Muppets on. So things behind the scenes got bad, possibly, or their relationship deteriorated. The Gorch Muppets started to get a little more interesting around then, though. So sensing their impending termination, those Muppets start appearing outside of the Gorch sketches, basically like pleading with the guest hosts to allow them to be on an episode, or like popping up in sketches and like ruining the sketches by trying to be part of the show, and then having little behind the scenes vignettes where they talked about how they were basically fucked. So eventually the Gorch skits were axed from the show completely, and then like there's a couple other times where the characters pop up, but they were phased out completely and never seen again after the first episode of season 2. By that time, though, Jim and company had a new opportunity lined up, and they were going to fly off to England to begin work on The Muppet Show. We also watched the intro to an episode of Des O'Connor Entertains, which was like a British variety show, I guess, in which Des O'Connor is sitting at a big conference table with some of the Muppet Show Muppets. The Muppets, like me, have no idea who Des O'Connor is, so he tells them. They still don't really seem to know, but they agree to help him open his show in a groundbreaking, new, wild way that only they can. And after some deliberation, they come up with a cool idea to have him go out and sing a song, just like the way he normally always does. And we also watched Jim on The Tonight Show, where he shows off a skit, Rag Mop, from the upcoming Muppet Show, along with behind-the-scenes footage of the Muppeteers Muppeteering. The skit is a bunch of singing mops, and at the end of the skit, George, the janitor, who we already know is horny for mops, comes out and says that he liked the act because it had a bunch of mops in it. And then we watched Hollywood Squares, but I forgot to do that. So, Matt,
For shame.
tell us what happened in Hollywood
For
Squares.
shame, Sam.
Look, you changed the format of how our episodes are arranged.
I did.
I didn't know.
I thought I was making it simpler, but apparently I made it more complicated.
And there were so many episodes of Saturday Night Live. I thought I was doing good.
But yes, the other two things that I watched were 2 episodes of the Hollywood Squares, which was a game show forever. It seems it was just on. There was a daytime version, there was a nighttime version. It was on. They kept switching hosts. But essentially, if you've seen the show at all, it's a giant tic-tac-toe board filled with celebrities. And throughout the 70s, it was sort of like a thing to be on this show. Like it was, and I remember in the 90s, like Whoopi Goldberg was the center square, which was a big deal. Mm-hmm. And we will actually, I think, talk about more Hollywood Squares later on, like in the 80s and 90s. I think the Muppets continue to be on the Hollywood Squares. But for this season in 1976, Carol Spinney got to be a guest on Hollywood Square via Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch. And apparently the way they filmed this is the way they do a lot of other daytime TV things, where they would film like a week's worth of episodes in like a day or two. And so there are, I believe, from 1976, at least 5, if not more, episodes that Big Bird and or Oscar were on. I could only find 2 episodes. One is an episode with Big Bird, where he is also joined by McLean Stevenson from MASH and Sandy Duncan, who we've seen before. Mm-hmm. And some of the other squares are Carol Channing, who's famous for being Carol Channing as far as I know. George Gobel, who similarly had a show called The George Gobel Show, but I had never heard or seen this man in my life. Anson Williams from Happy Days and other things, I'm sure. Demond Wilson, who is the son of Sanford and Son. Paul Lynde was the middle square, who was just sort of like one of those zany, 70s comedians who everyone knew. I think somebody that I didn't notice at the time when I was watching this, but when I was looking up these people later on, was interesting, was Marsha Wallace was on this, who was on the Bob Newhart show. But for me, at least, Marsha Wallace goes on to be Miss Krabappel on The Simpsons.
Oh.
And so I almost went back to be like, can I hear a hint of Miss Krabappel in there? But I did not give it more time because the thing about Hollywood Squares is the whole conceit is that you have 2 regular people on, they get asked a trivia question, and they basically, like they're picking a celebrity on the wall of celebrities to answer a trivia question for them. They ask the celebrity the trivia question, the celebrity will first give like a joke answer that's sort of dirty sometimes, and then the celebrity will try to actually answer the question. And the normal person has to say, like, I agree, I think they're right, or I disagree, I think they're wrong about this. And depending on if they are right in the end, they get a circle or an X on the spot, and they try to make a tic-tac-toe board. There's some charming moments in the one with Oscar the Grouch where he is upset that he's making the contestant happy because he's earning them money, and he doesn't really enjoy making people happy. And then in the Big Bird one, it's nice because he interjects into some other people's questions. So like they ask Carol Channing a question that's like, they say in 30 years, women's waists will be as big as their busts and hips. Is this true? Kind of thing. And so Carol Channing's like talking it through. She's like, oh my God, we're all going to be egg-shaped. And she's like distressed about this. And you hear from the side just Big Bird go, I like eggs.
That's cute.
Yeah. And then later on, they ask Big Bird the question, at what age do kids start to learn dirty words?
Oh, no.
And he's like, well, I'm just getting started. And then he like backtracks immediately. He's like, no, never mind. I didn't say that. But yeah, so they're all right. They're fun to see, like Carol Spinney having a good time. And the Big Bird episode is nice because all the commercials are intact. So you get to see these sweet 1976 commercials, including a commercial for a douche, which, one is an outdated sort of technology, but also very weird to just hear a commercial say the word douche like 12 times in a row and for it to not be a joke.
I didn't watch those, so I will watch those for next time.
But I wanted to talk about real quick some of the things we could not watch from this year as well. You had Kermit appearing on Good Morning America in July 1976, and that was to sort of promote the upcoming Muppet Show a few months before it was coming out. And then you had more Hollywood Squares appearances from July 1976. And then you had an appearance on the Dinah Shore show in September 1976. But the one thing I wish we could find, which I don't know if anyone out there would ever be able to find it, is that in March of like 1976, they went to Japan to film a special with a pop star named Goro Noguchi.
Oh, I saw this. The Electric Mayhem played with him or something, right?
Yeah, and the Muppets apparently show up throughout like 20 minutes of this 90-minute special, and they have like the Electric Mayhem, Crazy Harry, Kermit the Frog, Fozzie, Frackles, George the janitor even comes along. And so, yeah, it's like basically this Japanese pop star did a variety show special like Julie Andrews or somebody would, but it's this whole Japanese special with the Muppets. It said in the Jim's Red Book entry about this that apparently the Muppets, like, they didn't really know how this was gonna work. Like, they didn't really know like if people were gonna react well to the Muppets. But it turned out that the sort of slapstick humor worked incredibly well, and the Japanese audience loved the Muppets. So maybe one day that'll turn up. It sounds like one of those things that somebody probably has a tape of somewhere. And then, I think the other things in my little notes of what the Muppets were up to this year is kind of just like different times they were filming The Muppet Show, which I think is important when we start to talk about the Land of Gorch, is that in January of 1976, which is like right in the middle of Land of Gorch, is when they go off to London to film the first 2 episodes, which is the Juliet Prowse and the Connie Stevens episodes that were sort of like their test episodes to see if this thing was even going to work. And so that's not only the Muppets getting to like do the show they want to do, which like partially leads to them leaving Saturday Night Live, but it also leads to this like switch where when the Muppets come back from London is around the same time when they start doing these sketches about the Muppets are leaving Saturday Night Live and they've torn down their set.
When they destroy their set.
Yeah, which apparently was actually the case.
That's what I read too, is that they knew things were going to wind down and they knew they had gotten the Muppet Show. So it wasn't like, I don't think they surprised tore down the sketch. I think they just did because it was time. Yeah.
But we're getting too close to talking about the Land of Gorch. So let's pause, talk about Des O'Connor Entertains real quick before we get too far into all the things we have to say about Land of Gorch. So what'd you think of Des O'Connor Entertains?
I don't know who Des O'Connor is.
I have no idea.
Like he's British Perry Como kind of or something. He's like,
well, he seems though like he's younger and he's supposed to be handsome.
Yeah, I think he just was like a song and dance man, and as we've seen millions of times before in our watchings of stuff, who just had a variety show. What stuck out to me with these, though, was, first of all, Wally pops up. I assume it's like an evolution of the character from the Valentine show.
But he looks completely different.
But he's obviously Blue Scooter.
Yeah, the only thing that really is the same is that he is at a typewriter, and his name is Wally.
And that character doesn't ever appear on The Muppet Show, does he?
I mean, I'm sure he does, but I don't know that he gets to be like a featured character. But I'm sure they
make it past the first season, probably.
The way they reuse Muppet like characters, I'm sure he appears in like an At the Dance or a background character or something.
Yeah. I haven't seen every episode of The Muppet Show, but I don't remember there being like a writer that they would go to a lot or anything like that.
Well, yeah, and I think it's probably more likely that the puppet gets reused rather than the character gets reused. Right. I assume we'll see that shape puppet in the background of something. I couldn't find the facts about when this was filmed, but because this came out in February 1976, and they were over in London in January 1976 filming those first episodes of The Muppet Show, I have to believe that this was around that trip, and that this was sort of, they had decided who these characters were for The Muppet Show, but no one had seen The Muppet Show yet. So this is sort of the first
Yeah.
time that like these Muppet Show versions of these characters are getting to feature on something. And the only thing that bummed me out about this clip is that there's apparently more. Like the Muppets show up throughout the entire special and are trying to help him out with more sketches and segues and things like that. So they're basically doing what they're doing in this clip, but we just get to see the opening of this special, not the entire thing.
It did seem like a good time.
Yeah, and we didn't really talk about this much last week, but they're finally putting Kermit in front, and they're finally like choosing Kermit to be the stand-in for, hey, we need somebody to be the leader of the Muppets. Because we saw that in the Julie Andrews stuff when he's singing the I Would Rule the World thing. He's doing his Tinker D role again, where he's introducing a fairy tale. He's out in front. He is the spokesman here. The stuff we're talking about today, they are making the Muppet Show while they are doing this other stuff. So it's clear that they've made the call. Kermit is our guy. So shall we dive in to the Land of Gorch?
Into a bubbling whatever, a gooey thing.
The bubbly tar pits and the sulfurous wastelands, from the rotting forest to the stagnant mudflats, obviously, Sam. So they start off episode 1. It's hosted by George Carlin. First episode of Saturday Night Live ever. And we have, this one's about a medical emergency where Queen Puda can't release her darts. I guess we can go more sketch by sketch a little bit, but I'm also curious how your feelings changed from the beginning of these Land of Gorch things to the end. Like when you sat down to watch this first one, what was your initial feeling?
I felt a little bit embarrassed for them because it clearly doesn't. So, okay. My experience with watching these shorts was that these skits rather, was that I watched them all by themselves, and then I would catch little bits of SNL, like the rest of the show, after they would end. So then I went back because I thought they looked good. So then I went back and just watched them all the way through. Not all of them. I got to episode 10, and they just don't fit in. The rest of the show is very organic, and there's running jokes throughout it, and obviously the same people in every sketch, and the host will pop up and introduce this next little thing. These are never really introduced. They just kind of happen. They disrupt the flow of everything. They're not funny, but they're not funny in the same way that the rest of the show is, because the rest of the show is not as put together as these are, and not as old-fashioned as these are. So at first, the first few are actually pretty good, though. At first I was oh, this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. It doesn't quite fit in, but it's not horrible. Then it does get horrible for the last few actual sketches that they do on their their Gorch set. But then when Scred, who's the little weasel guy, the little toady, sings his duet with Lily Tomlin, things kind of start to turn around, because that's great. And him interacting with a real person is great. And then that happens more and more often throughout the rest of their tenure on SNL. And that worked. It got to a point where I was well, if they had started off just with a reoccurring Muppet who could pop up with the rest of the cast, this would have worked, I think.
Yeah, and I feel very similarly. It's those early sketches for me don't do much. They just they feel like they thought of a sitcom situation. It almost feels like the precursor to Dinosaurs.
I think I saw a couple places in the Muppet Wiki where it talks about some of the ideas from sketches on this get used in Dinosaurs.
That makes sense to me, because I feel like this is that thing where they're okay, what happens on a sitcom? Somebody has problems with their taxes, they can't deal with it. Okay, let's do that, but on this weird alien planet with these alien Muppets, and then something goes wacky at the end.
Do that, but with big dinosaurs.
Right, and I feel like it works better on Dinosaurs because they obviously have a full half-hour episode to do these things, and they're not winking, nudging at the camera as much, as opposed to these are straight up hey, you get it? It's different because they're weird.
And then the rest of the the shows surrounding Dinosaurs don't keep saying Dinosaur sucks. That show sure is.
Oh God, here comes Dinosaurs again.
Yeah.
But yeah, these early sketches, I think I'm paying more attention to the puppets and how good they look.
Yeah,
at
they
this
look
point, great. And the performances are good. Of Jim Henson, Jerry Nelson, and Frank Oz are all getting to shine here.
The Mighty Favog is very good.
Yeah, it feels like Frank Oz just kind of being Frank Oz, which is a good departure from his Miss Piggy and stuff. Again, it's not terrible, but it definitely, I can understand why it didn't stick around.
I also think King Plubis is not a good character. He is, to me, as someone who's watched all the Muppet stuff up until now, boring because we've seen him a million times. He just is not like a very compelling character to build the whole thing around.
Yeah, which I get, like you're trying to do sort of like that sitcom-y, big dumb oaf kind of character, but it also isn't like he doesn't really have any charm to him. He's not that funny. The humor is usually happening around him. And so, yeah, I think you're right that like when they start to do the things with Scred and Lily Tomlin is when it starts to mesh better. And especially when they start to get out of the Gorch set and interacting with the celebrities, they really get to shine. Even Plubis starts to become more interesting because they are doing, I don't know, they're doing closer to what we are used to Muppets seeing, both before and after this. And I think it's also interesting to note that some of the better moments, like that Lily Tomlin one, is one of the few that was not written by the SNL staff. So the Lily Tomlin one was written by Jerry Nelson, and it turns out that was essentially like Jim and Frank were away somewhere, like they weren't in town, so they couldn't do a full Gorch sketch that week. And so Jerry Nelson like went in that week and was just working with Lily Tomlin of like, hey, what can we do? How can we make this a good sketch?
Oh, that's nice.
The sweetest moment in that, I think, comes from near the end. Scred gives Lily Tomlin a rose, and apparently that was not written or rehearsed. He apparently had gone out to dinner with his daughter that evening, and then they passed by a flower shop, and he bought a rose on the way back to the studio, and he kept it hidden until they went out on stage. So when he like gave it to Lily Tomlin, she didn't know that was going to happen.
I really like Scred by the end of this, and I thought he was voiced by the Gonzo guy.
Oh, Dave Goelz?
Yeah, so I was like, that Dave Goelz, another great character like Gonzo.
It is.
Because he sounds like him.
It sounds unlike any other Jerry Nelson character we've ever had.
And then when I read it was Jerry Nelson, I was like, my brand. I hate Jerry Nelson. But I really, really like Scred's like one of my favorite Muppets now.
He's
Not
very
Scred
good.
from the skits because I think he's a little like reductive and crude in the skits, but I love when he is. Just like that part when he's with Anthony Perkins, which is why I didn't get to that episode yet, but it's wild that Anthony Perkins is one of the guests on the first season of SNL. He's the guy, the killer from Psycho.
Yeah.
But like Scred interrupts a skit halfway through it to like beg Anthony Perkins to let him be on the show. And that's like probably, besides the Lily Tomlin thing, is my favorite of all of the things that they do.
But let's go back and maybe go through these a little bit one by one so we can talk about our individual feelings on some of them and also maybe ones that just really didn't work for us, because I think there's definitely some of those where it's just like, what is happening? And I think like the worst of SNL sometimes is those sketches where they clearly don't know how to end it, and so they just like say something and then fade to black, and you're like, oh, that's the end, I guess.
That was kind of one thing I liked about these early SNLs, which I had never watched before, is some of the skits are like 45 seconds long. And they weren't afraid to just be like, we have one funny joke and we're just going to tell it and get out of here. Mm-hmm. But the Land of Gorch does feel more like later SNL stuff where it just goes on a few, like a minute too long or something like that.
When you get other SNL sketches in this era that do go on like 3 times longer than they need to, and you're like, you only had one joke and you're doing it 12 times. Please let me go. You're holding me hostage in this sketch.
Oh, well, I liked it.
But yeah, we talked about the first one already. It's the one with can't release her darts, and they go to the Mighty Favog for help, and yeah, it doesn't really work that well. I think one thing to note on this one is that Rhonda Hansome does the role of Vaz in this one. It's the only time she would perform Vaz, and then later on, Fran Brill, who is from Sesame Street, will come and perform Vaz.
Who else did the first person perform as? Like, is she...
Oh, Rhonda's from SNL. Like, she is like an actress and comedian. And so they like pulled somebody from like the SNL group of people. Like maybe she was a writer there or something. I don't know. I don't think she was part of the cast. But yeah, she was just like a comedian, that she wasn't even a puppeteer.
Maybe it would have been more interesting if the cast of the show had voiced the characters or something like that. Like, I don't know, would have tied it in better or something.
I think they just hated them so much. They were like, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah. I think that's I think they were kind of being big babies too. Like when you read about how much the writers hated it.
Yeah,
like,
there's I pulled this quote from writer Alan Zweibel, who said, whoever drew the short straw this week had to write the Muppet sketch. The first time I met Michael O'Donoghue, I walked into Lauren's office. I look in the corner of the room and there's this guy I learned was him. What was he doing, you ask? He had taken Big Bird, a stuffed toy of Big Bird, and the cord from the Venetian blinds, and he wrapped the cord around Big Bird's neck. And that's how we felt about the Muppets.
Just shut up. Just write a Muppet sketch and shut up.
Well, then he tells this story of like he went over to Jim Henson's townhouse with like a sketch he had written to like get Jim's notes. And apparently Jim was reading the sketch and said, "Oh, Scred wouldn't say this." And in the interview, this writer says, "I look and on the table over there is this cloth thing that is folded over like laundry and it's Scred. And I think, oh, but he wouldn't say this? Oh, sorry." And I'm like,
Okay,
what a dick.
So yeah, they're huge dicks. Luckily, there are people on the show who are nice to them, like Lily Tomlin. It stands out especially, but everybody, there is a disdainful attitude that I think was a lot of just like big ego stuff.
Oh, for sure. I think especially some more than others, I think a lot of these cast members in early SNL think they are the shit. They think they are like the coolest, funniest, hottest person that exists in the world. And like it's like we talked about episodes ago, we talked about rewatching Friends and how in the later seasons of Friends, you can start to feel like the celebrity creeping in of like, oh, I'm no longer watching Rachel, I'm watching Jennifer Aniston.
When you have $50 million, it's hard to pretend to be Rachel Green.
Right, and I feel like we're seeing a little bit of that in the early season of SNL, where these are people who were like doing improv things in a small black box theater in Chicago, and suddenly they're on national TV. And so they're like, I think some of their egos are creeping in a little bit, where just like, hey, it's me, I'm here, being handsome and doing a thing.
Well, I know that you're talking specifically about Chevy Chase.
He's the worst offender to me, but I think Dan
But
Aykroyd
that's
is
his
also pretty
shtick,
guilty
like,
of this.
Yeah, at least Dan Aykroyd made Ghostbusters later, so it's like, hell yeah.
I mean, you get Chevy Chase making the National Lampoon movies.
That's true, but he is a dickhead, and at this point, everybody knows that. Dan Aykroyd is a kook, and that's funner than a dickhead, so I can cut him more slack. But to be fair to them, they also were the hottest shit in the world.
And that's the thing is like, I know that's true. And I know that they were super famous at this time. It's just because I can feel that oozing off of them. It makes me not like them. And I already like feel like I don't like Chevy Chase because of all the things I've ever heard about him. But rewatching these now, I'm just like, oh God, I just want you off of my TV.
Oh, I loved it. I even loved Chevy Chase. I thought he was very funny in these. Anyway?
Yeah, what do you think about the sort of the world of Gorch? The sort of all the story beats of like they have this sacrifices to the god. They're maybe on this alien planet. Who knows what time period this is taking place? Because you get some modern conveniences brought in, but then there's also very clearly like a primitive nature to this. Like I guess
they live in holes in the ground.
Yeah, but like as a world, I guess how do you feel about that?
I thought it was fine. Perfectly serviceable, like cartoon setting. Did you not like it?
I liked it. It was just, I think, again, the moment it clicked for me that this was just sort of like a proto-dinosaurs, I was like, oh, now I just want to watch dinosaurs because it's the better version of this.
Yeah.
But I think there are clever ideas where you have like their son, Whis, who is like smoking craters, which is clearly like he's smoking pot. But that's one of the ones that I feel like ends in a way where I'm like, okay, they had a good joke of like this kid smoking craters. We can use that as this like allegory for weed. And then it ends with the Mighty Favog's advice is, the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. And then they fade to black. And I'm like, that's nothing. That's just nothing.
That is nothing. That I think was also a callback to something earlier in the SNL episode. Was that the Rob Reiner episode?
Yeah.
Yes. So Rob Reiner sang that song in the beginning, in his intro.
Oh. All right. So there's some context that I missed by not watching the full episode.
That's why, because they kept talking about bees. You remember?
But I'm aware of the bees because the bees are a thing.
I didn't know.
On the early season of SNL, they have this sketch that they do where everyone's dressed up as bees in wacky situations.
Yes, and that keeps reoccurring, and they keep talking about how dumb the bees are, but then by the end of the season, everybody loves the bees. So that's when I started to be like, maybe I need to watch more.
I am missing.
I don't know what
something.
the hell they're talking about because there's a We'll talk about it in a second. Let's go back to the first.
Oh, all right, all the way back to the first one.
Well, we could go to the second one. The first one, I guess we finished talking about. The fiscal assistance one, the second skit, and the Paul Simon one. I did like that one. I thought that one was fun.
See, these early ones sort of washed over me, I think. Like, I had some experience with these previously because I owned season 1 Saturday Night Live on DVD when they first released that. And I would go back and just kind of like very casually watch these. Like, I wasn't necessarily watching them for the Muppets. I wasn't necessarily watching it because I loved the first season of SNL. It was just sort of that thing of like, I like 90s, 2000s SNL, and I wanted to own this and watch it. But it was always very passively watching. So some of these were familiar to me. But I had never really like watched them with like a very critical eye. And I think they're harder to watch with a critical eye, but they're pretty easy to watch passively. I think if you were just watching SNL and these happened in the middle, whether or not it was a solid sketch, I don't think it would make you more upset that this existed in the middle of that show.
No, I don't think so either. And I got the impression sometimes after they were over that the people in the audience didn't hate them.
Oh, yeah, and there's even in one of the later ones when they show up sort of unexpectedly, the crowd is very happy to see them.
So I think it was sort of overblown on the part of the SNL people how much they were hated.
Oh, I think SNL behind the scenes people did hate them, but I think the audience didn't mind, because if you watch you watch some of these episodes, they're not all great. Like, and some of the sketches especially are terrible, and people aren't even laughing.
That stuck out to me a lot. That there was a lot of sketches where I was chuckling at, but the audience was just completely silent.
Especially some of these earlier Gorch ones, like they would like do a sort of like setup punchline, classic sort of joke structure, and not even a chuckle would ring out from the audience. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay. Maybe this specific audience does hate the Muppets.
And that would be extremely mortifying to a situation to be performing in also.
Well, especially because this is live for them. Like, the Muppets didn't do a ton of live stuff.
Yeah.
Especially not this, like, high concept of stuff. And I think there's some interesting moments throughout the sketches where technically, like, things go a little wrong, where, like, puppets get caught on each other.
Yeah.
And they have to, like, improv it a little bit, where there's one in, like, the very first sketch, I think, where, like, Scred and, like, Plubis get, like, stuck together, or he's handing him something and he has to be like, let go of it, will ya?
And it went on for so long, I wasn't sure if it was like supposed to be a joke or not, but obviously something was going wrong. There's another episode where they were supposed to appear, and at the end of the episode, the host is like, the Muppets couldn't be on tonight because they had technical difficulties. So
interesting.
I thought that was interesting too. I couldn't figure out what those difficulties were though.
But yeah, so the fiscal assistance one, again, just kind of washed over me.
Yes, under the fiscal assistance one, I wrote kind of funny, and that's the only one I wrote that under. So that one must have been my favorite one.
Interesting.
I did like when they would say, we're on the edge of default, and then they would say, we're not on the edge of default, we're right by the Scablands. I thought that was a funny joke.
Yeah. And like, I think there are moments where those jokes land. And I think the episode 4, which is the Candice Bergen hosted, the first Candice Bergen episode that she hosts, is one of the ones that works best for me early on.
Yeah.
Because it's
totally.
like, Plubis wants to eat some gligs, which are like chickens, I guess. They kind of look chickeny.
They look like Kazooie from Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah. But there's only 2 gligs left, a male and a female. So they're like, oh, well, we have to let them reproduce. And so he goes to the mighty Favog for advice on making more. And the Favog charges a glig as a payment. So they toss one of the last 2 remaining gligs into Favog.
And when they toss stuff into Favog, it makes a toilet flushing sound, which I also liked.
Yes. But what I liked about that is that, I don't know, it like lets them be stupid in a fun way.
Totally. That one worked really well. That one felt like maybe they secretly wrote it and they just didn't tell the union or whatever that they wrote it. Because that's one of the few also that has like a different little prop character made or something. And it's funny in a more traditional Muppety kind of way. I think if they had been allowed to write them, they probably would have been way better too.
Oh, for sure. I think that's one of the main things that we've seen in the past is just like when you have Jerry Jewell writing something, it usually works pretty well. And then you bring in a guest writer and you're like, not as good. And then episode 5, which again, just for like a time's sake for you to understand where we're at right now, we are in November of 1975. So they started off in October 1975. We're on episode 5 now. The host of this episode was Robert Klein.
I don't know who that is.
I don't know who that is either.
Okay. I looked him up and I was still like, I don't know.
He was a face I recognized. And this one I didn't take any notes for other than the concept, which is like Plubis has a headache and Scred is trying to help him get rid of it.
This one's kind of interesting because they are sticking needles into him.
Oh, yeah. This one's good. I forgot.
This one's a little scary because you're like, oh, there's a human arm in there. And you are sticking that needle very far into that puppet.
Yeah, they have an at-home acupuncture kit to help Plubis's headache. And Jim Henson starts to stick real needles into the puppet's head. Which, again, yes, he could be possibly stabbing his hand. The Plubis puppet works really well in this moment. And he, like, puts Plubis's face into these like frozen like little moments where he just like can't move his face or he's shaking a little bit, and it's very very well done. Like I think overall these puppets are all great looking.
Yeah.
Vaz is a little weird. That like it's like I don't know. Like
Well, she's got boobs.
she's got boobs. She's a mermaid.
I mean, Miss
type-
Piggy has boobs, but Vaz has naked boobs that flop.
Yeah, that's yeah. No, it's not a great Muppet. It's not my favorite character.
And there are a few times where one of them will accidentally nudge her boobs, and they'll go wong 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 wong, and then everybody in the audience will laugh, which is kind of funny.
Now it's episode 6. It is the one with Lily Tomlin, the one where Scred is falling for Lily Tomlin, and they sing
Yes.
"I Got You, Babe." It's just very cute.
It is the question that I keep having, where obviously the best thing the Muppets have ever done up until this point is Rolf. So why don't they ever understand that a Muppet interacting with a human, ending with a song, is like an unbeatable thing?
Right.
They just don't go back to that. Like, that's all I would do for the rest of my life, I think, if I was them. But I guess that's not what he wants to do. But they're doing it again here, and it's beautiful.
I think this is one of those ones where you mentioned earlier that Scred could have worked as like a famous character. Like I think he could have gone on to bigger, better things. And I think this is one of those that proves that, where I think Lily Tomlin does a lot of the work here too, to like elevate Scred into a character that people should care about. But
they have a genuine chemistry.
Oh, absolutely. And I think Jerry Nelson is killing it as Scred in all of these sketches, but especially when he gets to step outside of the weaselly role that Scred gets to play, or he has a lot of the jokes where he's like looking at the camera of like, I get it, we're dirty now, we get to be adult humor.
These skits did make me, just a slight digression, these skits did make me hate stuff like they do. Like Brian Henson these days does like dirty puppet, kind of like specifically adult puppet stuff, and I don't like that concept, but knowing that that's what Jim wanted to do too, kind of makes me a little bit more like, well, I guess you're not really that different than your dad. Because I think a lot of people would assume that Jim Henson would be like, oh, son, what are you doing? But he'd be like, oh, yeah, I'll talk about puppet boners with you. Come on, let's go. Which is kind of sweet in a way.
Well, and that's, you will get there when we're talking about the Raquel Welch episode. But that's like the horniest Muppets we've ever heard.
Oh, these are the in general the horniest Muppets. There's one where they like have sex in front of the audience, basically.
Yeah, so let's work our way towards that one. Next up, we have episode 7, which is hosted by Richard Pryor from December 13th, 1975. This is when Plubus and Scred get drunk.
This is the one I don't remember. Like, I remember it, but I didn't write anything down for it, really.
Yeah, a lot of these early ones I did not really take many notes for because I didn't have a lot of thoughts other than like, that was all right. But I think the next episode is where we start to take a little bit of a turn, which I enjoy. Episode 8 is hosted by Candice Bergen, again, which is wild. They used to like have these repeat guests hosting.
Yeah, like 4 weeks later, she was back on again.
Yeah. But in this one, it's King Plubus is throwing a Christmas party, and nobody is coming because apparently the killer bees threw a Christmas party instead, which the bees are the ones that Sam was referencing earlier, that you need a little bit of context to understand what the bees are.
Because a bee does not appear in this sketch, which would have been helpful maybe to understand what the hell was going on.
Yeah, we never see any bees in these sketches with them when they mention the bees. We're just supposed to understand who the bees are.
But at this point also, I think the Richard Pryor SNL, I think, was the one that like cemented SNL as the institution it is. Mm-hmm. And that was like last week. So everybody at this point in 1975 knows who the bees are.
Oh, absolutely. This show was very successful very immediately. Yeah. So the bees were taking the nation by storm.
Yeah. But this Christmas party one is good because it also has a real person in it.
Yeah, they let Candice Bergen come to the party, and she's not super stoked to be there.
No, but she helps them feel better about their bad party.
Yes. And they sing Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, and then they end up sneaking away and going to the bees party anyways.
Would have been cute to see them at the bees party.
Yep, would have been great. And it also, I think, would have bridged that gap of, obviously, maybe they didn't like them, whatever, having the rest of the cast interact more with these Muppets.
Yes. Just talk to them at least once.
Yeah, as opposed to like letting the guest host deal with them. Feels like it would have done a little bit more to cement them as part of the team.
Then the next one sucks.
So that's episode 9, hosted by Elliot Gould from January 1976. This is the one where we find out, it's been maybe hinted at a little bit before this, but this is a full-on confirmation that Puta and Scred are having an affair. which, I mean, I only feel so bad about because obviously Plubis is sleeping with Vaz, so I don't really care about that too much. But Puda and Scred are starting to feel a little guilty, and so that they were going to confess. They were talking about confessing, and at the beginning they're reading the Joy of Sex book to look for new positions that they can try out. And at the end, when Scred goes and asks the mighty Favog for help, he basically tells him to go masturbate.
This one feels like a step back for Scred, though. This is like an in-universe Scred and not an interacting with the rest of the cast Scred.
Absolutely. And I think that's what some of these also feel so off because it feels like they're performing in a sketch that they don't want to be performing in.
Yeah, it really does.
But this episode is notable because this is the same week that they would end up pre-taping some Gorch sketches that would fill in for the time when they are off in London doing the Muppet Show episodes, because they recorded this on January 10th and they fly out January 11th to go to London to start filming those shows. So apparently they pre-taped at least one other, which is the next one, Gorch segment, but they also, I think they might have done a couple more just because the overlap seems a little weird. But yeah, like the next one is the only one that wasn't live, like for the audience. It was pre-taped. And yeah, we'll get into that one because it's another horny Scred.
This one's the worst one.
Yeah, so episode 10, Buck Henry is the host, and Scred has ordered a sex toy.
Yes, this is the one where they had deserved to be kicked off the show after this one. Because it's just not, like, even beyond the fact that it's nasty, it's not funny. And the prop is, like, not, the prop sex toy, like, doesn't work, really. It just seems like it actually doesn't work. Like,
yeah, like, they're trying to get it, like, off of their hand, it's not working, and then they're, like, not really sure what they're supposed to be doing with it. Like, the characters aren't sure, but it also seems like the puppeteers aren't really sure.
So this is like the worst Muppet skit that we've seen, period, I would say. It's just badly done, and they're not usually ever badly done, even if they're not funny. There's just nothing to this one.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that, like, they chose this character trait of Scred, that he's super into, like, BDSM. Like, bound and gagged is one of the things he talks about in this one. In earlier sketches, he references that, like, when Plubis hits him, that he's kind of into it.
Yeah, he likes getting hit.
Yeah, which, again, you can do. That's fine. Like, it gives him more character than a lot of these other characters have. But again, like, this, I think you're absolutely right. Like, this is definitely the worst one of these. And it's, like, it's not funny. The prop doesn't work. And it just goes nowhere. I think it's just, again, it's overcorrecting. You're trying to be edgy. You're trying to be adult. And this is like, okay, pull it back. Too far.
Yeah.
But we get that big pivot, another big pivot, I guess, coming up here. The next one is the Peter Cook and Dudley Moore co-hosting episode on January 24th, 1976. And this is when Scred is just hanging out with Gilda Radner, dressed up like a bee.
Mm-hmm. He was supposed to be in a skit, and then they canceled the skit and didn't even tell him.
Yeah. I like that this is starting to creep into that time when the Muppets are talking about how they're not respected on Saturday Night Live, because he's like, no one tells us Muppets anything.
Yeah, they're starting to see the writing on the wall. Yeah. Like, the characters are starting to see the writing on the wall.
And Scred is, this is another character thing that starts to come out, is he's fully in it for himself at this point. Yeah. He's like, yeah, I don't care about those other Muppets, but I could, like, host Weekend Update, or I could be a breakout star. I could be in other sketches. I am surprised by how little Gilda Radner gives to Scred in this little chat. Like, she just kind of, like, doesn't react to him much. Like, he'll say a joke and she's just like stares at him like, oh. And I'm like, you're being a very bad improv partner right now, Gilda.
Yeah, that's true. Well, she probably hated him. So.
No, because she'll go on to be on the Muppet Show, so she clearly likes them.
Oh, I forgot about that. Maybe she was scared of him.
He is scary looking. He's the most Skeksis looking thing that we've seen.
Did you read that he was the direct inspiration for the Skeksis?
I did not. I did see a video clip, though, that is out there of when Jim Henson was hosting some puppet workshops before they were going into the Dark Crystal and, like, teaching people how to control Skeksy heads. He used the Scred puppet as, like, hey, look at this. This is the closest thing we have to a Skeksy right now until we build them, so let's use this.
Yeah, I think it seems to imply on Muppet Wiki that sketches of him were kind of, like, sketches of Scred were kind of fleshed out into Skeksis, and, like, just like the world of Gorch had a little bit of an influence in the Dark Crystal world.
And that makes sense to me because these are sort of the I like their designs a lot, but these are sort of like the grossest puppets we've seen so far.
Yeah.
They have a lot of like little moles and hairs and detail that like we don't often get with our very smooth like Kermit type Muppets.
Do you like a smooth Muppet or a lumpy Muppet better?
That's a good question. I don't know. Plubus's overall vibe reminds me a little bit of Alf.
Oh gosh, he looks exactly like Alf now that you mention it.
Yeah, his head is very much like an Alf. And I kind of like that. And I think that, like, but I also think there's something to the extra little hairs and details on him that make him like a slightly more believable character, as opposed to like feeling like I'm just staring at a sock puppet talking to Johnny Carson.
True.
And like obviously, certain puppets overcome that, especially Henson like puppets like Kermit and stuff. But I think these are puppets that are immediately believable as characters in a show.
Yeah. I mean, but like you said, so is Kermit.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's Kermit and Henson do a lot of work that like makes Kermit a believable character. And when they're talking to them, like there's a lot that goes into making that work. Whereas I feel like you could just see like Scred on a stick in a back room and you're just like, wow, look at that guy.
Little creature. Yeah, that's true. We should do an Alf bonus episode someday.
Oh, God. I've watched like maybe one episode of Alf in my entire life.
Yeah, me too, probably. But he's a great puppet.
He's a really good puppet. And also a costume at times.
Oh, yeah. Also a costume at times.
Yeah, I don't really understand how Alf works, but we can get into that. We can do a bonus episode about Alf.
We'll get to the bottom of it. So the next one is a weird one.
Yeah, it's not actually a Gorch sketch. It's on the Gorch set that they still haven't torn down yet, but I think they're about to. Like maybe immediately after this, they were like, anyone want to do anything on the Gorch set? Yeah, Chevy Chase does. Okay, as soon as you're done, though, we're tearing that thing down.
Yeah. Chevy Chase just pushes it over after he's done with his skit. But it's a little hand puppet show where he doesn't have any puppets or anything. Chevy Chase has his two hands and he reenacts a woman having sex with the milkman.
It's the setup for like very cheesy, generic, like 70s porno type thing where it's like the husband leaves, the milkman shows up, the wife doesn't know how to pay the milkman, and so she chooses sexual favors. But they do some very clever things. I guess Chevy Chase does some very clever things because it's all him. But not only does the milkman come in just carrying a glass of milk so that you know he's the milkman, but also when they start to have sex, she takes off his watch as if it's his belt.
Yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah, which is very good.
Yeah.
And I think they kind of... I'm actually, not that I wanted to like see more of this puppet hand sex going on,
yeah,
but they bail on it in a way that I didn't love. They just kind of like
it ends really abruptly.
They cut to a camera that's like behind the set that reveals to you that Chevy Chase is actually the one back there, and it's like, yeah, we already like knew that though because they introduce it with like the Muppets can't be here because they're at the Grammys in California, so like Chevy Chase has a special performance he wants to put on for you. So like it's not really like an embarrassing reveal to show him back there. I didn't really understand that.
And he just says like, well, we'll be right back, folks, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he could have just had the hand puppet say, we'll be right back, folks, instead. It ends like, like why would they turn that camera on? There's just too much of a leap of logic there. Or if they had set it up like he snuck onto the set and they didn't even announce it. Like they pretended like it was going to be a Land of Gorch thing.
Yeah, and then that'd be great.
Then it would have made sense to have the camera go.
If they did the same like Don Pardo intro, and all of a sudden you just see a naked hand walk in and be like, "Yeah, that's how they should have done it." And now we start diving into the post-set Gorch segments,
the existential crisis of the Gorch puppets,
which is my favorite era of the Gorch puppets because they're very desperate. They want to stick around. They want to be on Saturday Night Live, and they will pretty much do whatever it takes to stay on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
And the first example we get of this is in episode 16, which is from March 1976. Again, hosted by Anthony Perkins, who is the bad guy from Psycho. Spoilers. For that 60-year-old movie.
That is a spoiler. I guess you're right.
Yeah.
You do think it's the mom until the very end of the movie.
Yeah. So yeah, spoilers for this 60-year-old movie. But yeah, we get Plubus and Scred showing up to just like talk to Anthony Perkins, basically saying like, "Hey,
beg Anthony Perkins to let them be on the show."
Yeah, like please work us in, and he's like giving them the push off of like, "Yeah, I'll see what I can do."
And then the best part of all of them, I think, like I said before, Lily Tomlin's tied with this.
Yeah.
But in the middle of a sketch, Scred is just like the bartender in the background, and he pops up and he's like, "Anthony, you gotta help us, please." And then the whole sketch stops so that they can they can talk about that, which is the kind of thing that happens a lot in SNL. Like sketches get interrupted midway through to like segue into another thing.
Yeah.
In these old ones, which is something that I totally loved. Like this would have been so fun, I think, to watch week to week and see like the Muppets having a nervous breakdown and see like Chevy Chase and like all of these like running jokes throughout the whole thing. It was just like a cool little clubhouse or something. But yeah.
Yeah, I like that I like that like Scred and Plubis don't understand how the show works really. Like they're interrupting sketches in the middle, and Anthony Perkins is trying to tell them like, you understand we're on TV right now, right? Like you're interrupting this sketch, and they're like, yeah, whatever. So they destroyed our Gorch. Can you help us?
Yeah.
And I like that
They
again.
burned it.
Scred is like fully out for himself, trying to get a role on the show. I think Jerry Nelson's doing a fantastic job in this one specifically. And then Plubis comes in. And he's definitely in the mode of like, all of us Muppets need to stick together, right, Scred? Scred's like, yes, boss, definitely.
Wow, Scred deserved it. I think we texted about this, but if Scred and I talked about it earlier, if Scred had been like not a creepy little lizard and had been something like an animal or something that could have lived in New York or whatever and just popped up every now and then, that would have been perfect, I think.
Yeah, no, I think he's just a little too gravelly and obnoxious and a little too ugly to be a true breakout star.
Yeah, can't have Scred merch. Too lumpy.
Yeah, like when we get like Gilda Radner and like Lily Tomlin like loving up on him and kissing him and stuff, like it's not because he's so cute like a Kermit or a Ralph. Like he's gross.
I bet he feels bad to kiss too.
He looks
Probably
like he would
rubbery
be
and
slimy.
weird.
I know he's not, but he looks like he should be.
But like if Rizzo had been like the SNL character.
Right,
like,
yeah, exactly.
If Rizzo popped up and was like, hey, let's sing a little song, and then we smooch Rizzo at the end, Rizzo would still be on SNL probably.
Yeah.
Come on.
But speaking of weird and creepy and a little bit, not even a little bit horny, a lot of bit horny, next up is episode 18 from April 24th, hosted by Raquel Welch. Yikes. So this is apparently, surprisingly, the only one written by Jim Henson.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
His horniness it rears its head yet again.
Yeah, and this is Scred and Plubis are sneaking in to SNL because they're not wanted here. But they're still trying to like talk themselves up. Like they're like, everyone loves the Muppets. We're lovable. Never forget that. Which is funny because like again at this time they have started to make the Muppet Show. Like they know they're on to bigger and better things. But I think they're doing a good job of keeping these guys in character as the like struggling cast members here.
And this one is creepy. And I don't want to cast any aspersions or anything like that. But it does seem like they're trying to touch Raquel Welch's boobs.
Absolutely they are. Because they're like
And I don't
slightly
like that.
grazing them multiple
Yes.
times. And I think at one point she's even like, careful.
Yeah. So that's not good.
No.
And they should have gone to jail for that.
Yeah. There'd be a mugshot of Jim Henson with Plubis on his arm.
I assume it was Jim's hand.
Oh,
who
yeah.
was
I have to
grazing the
assume. Because
breast.
I think it was Plubis's left hand was doing all the feeling,
Yeah.
which would have been Jim's
Which would
left
be
hand.
So
Jim and
that's
Jerry Nelson
not
both
good.
getting too fresh with Raquel Welch
At least
here.
Jerry's hands are on a stick. He's not actually touching her boobs.
I guess that's true, yeah. But Jim is straight up like hand on her chest.
Yeah. That's not good.
No.
Uh,
Not only are they like touching her chest, but it's like part of the plot is that they're trying to get her to have sex with them. Like
oh, yes. They do want to literally just ask her if she'll have
because
sex. with
Plubis
them.
is
That's
basically
true.
says he's like,
Fair
oh,
enough.
until you've made it with a Muppet, and he doesn't finish that
Yeah.
thought, but you know where it's going.
Yeah, sure.
And there's she responds, she's like, well, you guys are just puppets. You don't even exist below the waist. And Scred says, I'm pretty good with my hands. Which again, good joke, but so weird.
Yeah. Then this is the one that ends with them all putting themselves in the trunk because they know their days are numbered, right?
Yeah, they go back and they find the mighty Favog. He's in the backstage area. They need to get in the trunk. But this is all like they start to become very self-aware in this moment because like obviously they get told by Raquel Welch that they don't have anything below the waist, and they ask the mighty Favog like for advice about like how to deal with that, and he's like, "Don't look down.
Yeah.
And then he tells them to like go ahead and get in the trunk. And when they open it up, everyone else is in there, like Whis and Puta and Vaz are hanging out in there.
It's kind of sad.
Yeah, no, and they're all worried about like, oh, well, we can't breathe. There's not enough air. And Favog reminds them once again, you're only puppets. You're not real. You don't need air. Get in the trunk.
Oh, no.
So yeah, it's very sad. And it honestly, like, as much as it is sad, it feels like this should have been the sign-off for them. Like,
yeah.
this would have been a fine send-off. Like, okay, we never see the Muppets again. They're in a trunk. That's fine. But it's not.
No. Which is okay. Because the next one is kind of okay, too. Because Chevy Chase is just, like, bumbling around backstage where their trunk is.
Yeah, and Scred pops up
comes out
of the trunk and is like, hey, Chevy, have any use for us yet?
Yeah. And this is a month later, and they reference that they've been in the trunk for a month.
Yeah, and then Chevy tells Scred that Lorne Michaels has become too big to work with Felt anymore.
Yeah.
And this one brings up the interesting Beatles references. They just start singing a lot of random Beatles songs at the end of this, which really doesn't go anywhere. But in the middle of this, they reference a thing that apparently was happening in this era of SNL, where Lorne Michaels would basically just come out and talk straight to the camera and offer the Beatles $3,000 to appear on the show, which, to be fair, was like a lot of money. Like, that's close to like $15,000, $20,000 in today's money. So, I mean, the Beatles were worth way more than that still, but the whole thing was that Lorne Michaels was offering the Beatles $3,000 to reunite on the show, which never happened. But in this sketch, we see that Favog apparently knows the Beatles. He is the walrus, he says.
He is indeed the walrus.
And so Scred is trying to grease the palms here at SNL and tell Chevy Chase that he can get the Beatles to come on the show.
There is a possibly apocryphal story.
Yes, I saw this too. I only found like one or two sites that were claiming this, and there was no actual, like, in an interview they said, but it said that John Lennon and Paul McCartney were hanging out in a New York hotel. They saw this sketch, and they were tempted to go down and claim the prize.
That would have been cool.
Absolutely would have been cool. But I don't believe that, like, that's so many very specific things would have had to happen for that to be true, that I like the idea of it being true, but at the same time, the idea of John Lennon and Paul McCartney hanging out in a hotel room watching the Muppets on SNL feels too fanciful.
Yeah. I mean, I bet a lot of people were watching SNL at that particular moment, especially people in New York.
Yeah.
And it's not too crazy that the Beatles would go, because, like, Paul Simon is basically as famous as the Beatles.
Well, and you get a Simon and Garfunkel
episode.
Sort of like reunion on his episode.
Did you watch that?
I have watched it in the past. I did not rewatch it this
He's
week.
so mean to Art Garfunkel in that. And Art just like sits and stares face forward, not engaging as Paul Simon's like insulting him to his face.
Weird.
It's amazing. Yeah.
And then we get the very last appearance of the Muppets on SNL.
Yes. Their good friend Lily Tomlin comes back.
Yeah, this is season 2. So this is 4 months later.
Yeah, the season premiere of season 2.
Yeah. Somehow they got out of the trunk. They are now in filing cabinets, and they each have their own little cabinet, which is nicely labeled. But yeah, they reference that they've been dead for 3 months. And there's a dust cover on Favog, and they're just like not being treated very nicely. They do get to use this as a nice little promotional tool for the Muppet Show, because this is only like 2 days before the Muppet Show is going to air, and they get to mention that that's coming up. But after they're promoting the Muppet Show, Lily Tomlin basically asks them like, are they going to be on the show? And they're like, oh no, we don't get to be on that. It's family entertainment. And she says, aren't you family entertainment? And Scred says, hell yes.
Yeah, and then she tries to get him. She kind of tries to get him back on the show as well.
Yeah, but I don't know what happens at the end of the sketch because it falls apart.
Oh yeah, she like one of them blows a line.
Yeah, none of them know how to react, so she just walks away.
Yeah. But I don't know who missed their line, but somebody did.
Yeah, there's like 3 random little lines that don't line up or make sense with each other, and it feels like the entire sketch is imploding, and so she just literally walks away from...
Yeah, she just pieces out, which you could do, I guess, on SNL back then.
Well, and she like immediately comments on it, too. Like, she walks over and she's like, well, you know, the pressure of a live television show, and you're like, yeah, no, clearly something went wrong. And then did you watch the very end of the episode?
When Scred comes out and is flailing around.
And this very weird thing that seems like it would maybe be a Christmas thing if this wasn't taking place in September.
I think the Antler Dance song is something that they had sung before.
I would hope so, because otherwise it just seems like Lily Tomlin was like, I'm going to end the show on the weirdest note possible.
I'm pretty sure it was a Paul Schaefer song.
Okay.
That like I think at this point, Paul Schaefer, who will be the band director for David Letterman for that show's entire run, had come up with this goofy song.
Gotcha.
And like
Yeah.
and like a lot of episodes will have the band just play a song.
Yeah.
Or like they'll play with the musical guest, but they'll be like drawn attention to like, oh, this is the SNL band playing this song with our musical guest, and they'll all have like a little skit and a funny costume and stuff. So the band was like more in the forefront back then.
Gotcha.
And I'm pretty sure there's like an antler dance skit or something like that.
I like love Lily Tomlin, but she's not really a singer.
No, not really.
And so to end this episode with her singing a song that is super weird is just I don't know, it's an odd choice for a season premiere of this show.
Yeah.
But then at the end of that, as everyone's rushing out to dance and do the antler dance, we get Plubis and Scred coming out with antlers on top of their head. And that would be the last time the Muppets would be seen on SNL until 2004.
They come back?
Well, not Scred and Plubis, but like Fozzie and Kermit and stuff show up.
Oh,
But they don't come back until 2004.
that's wild. I would have assumed that they would pop up during the run of the Muppet Show.
It feels like that would make a lot of sense, but no one else apparently thought it did.
Maybe they hated each other too much.
I think maybe like everyone talks about it like there was no bad blood. Like Jim Henson and Frank Oz both say it just didn't work. Something was like a mismatch there. And Lorne Michaels said that there was no bad blood, but it seems like there maybe was because they didn't come back and do anything again together for a long time.
I wonder how much them saying there was no bad blood is informed by the fact that they went directly to make like one of the hugest television shows in history.
Right. That if they had like spent 3 more years struggling to try and figure something else out, they might be like, goddamn Saturday Night Live, like ruined our lives.
They fucked us.
Yeah. Especially I feel like Frank Oz would be very candid about that if that was the case.
Yeah, for sure. And that's it for them. They're gone.
They're gone.
And they're never seen again.
Kinda.
Yeah, except they're in the end of the Muppet movie.
Yes, because everyone has to be in the Rainbow Connection scene.
Except Favog is not in the Rainbow Connection scene.
I guess that would be a weird one to sort of try and include because he's not really like a moving around character. But
I'm sure there must be others who aren't included, but he seems like that seems like a pretty rare distinction to not be in that.
He's just hanging out with Leroy from the Muppet Musicians of Bremen somewhere. He's like,
oh, no.
We never get to be in anything anymore.
Yeah, the truly forgotten Muppets.
But Favog is such a good puppet.
He's really cool.
Like, he's just a big solid block of foam pretty much, but the way Frank Oz like talks out of the side of his mouth.
Moves the side of his mouth is so good.
Yeah. I wish I don't know, Favog could pop up in something else. Like even like I feel like that's a thing that they could just do on Saturday Night Live randomly.
That's what I was thinking too. Yeah, it would be like a Pee-wee's Playhouse thing almost, where like in the corner they just have a big idol and they go ask it for advice once an episode or something, or flush something down the big toilet. Yeah,
like do like a weird sketch with I don't know. You could bring back somebody who it would make sense to sort of dive into the old Saturday Night Live stuff. Like bring Lily Tomlin or somebody like that on. Like have Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin co-host for the last season of Grace and Frankie or something like that.
That would be cool.
Yeah, and like have them come on and have Lily Tomlin meet up with Scred and have to like dust him off from a cabinet or something.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you have to recast Scred and stuff.
Well, yeah,
but
there's that.
Matt Vogel can probably do it. He's doing everything else.
Yeah, he can do everything. So what did you think about these all in all?
Yeah, I mean, again, did not love them overall. I think especially my memory of these was that they weren't very good, especially watching a lot of the earlier ones and not getting to the later ones or really understanding what was going on in the world of Muppets at this time. But going back and watching them now and watching them all together, I can appreciate them more. And especially once you get into them interacting with Anthony Perkins and Candace Bergen and Lily Tomlin, I like these characters and kind of like wish they would show up more, either as like guests on the Muppet Show or just like again on Saturday Night Live somewhere else, because I feel like especially Favog and Scred and even Plubis to an extent work really well, and it's kind of a shame that we never get to see them again.
You maybe will disagree with this, but I think that it's worth watching the first season of Saturday Night Live, or probably even maybe like the first couple seasons, just like because it's an interesting cultural artifact, and it does have kind of like a storyline throughout the whole season of different skits getting more and less popular, and you can kind of feel it picking up steam in a really interesting way. And I think as like a piece that like comments on like show business, or like even just comments on like where the Muppets are culturally right now. I think these, as like taken together, have like a good arc, and they're like a little interesting piece of something. They're not funny. Some of them are, but they're generally not. They're not the best puppetry that they've ever done, but it's definitely like a curiosity that's worth seeing in some respects.
And I think it's another one of those things that people don't necessarily know even happened. Like the Wilkins and Wilkins commercials and some of those Sam and Friends things that show up on Twitter every now and then. People are always surprised at like the violence or whatever like that coming out of the Muppets.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you showed somebody like the sex toy episode of this, they'd be like, "What? This is actual Muppets? This is Jim Henson? What the hell happened?"
Totally. It changes the way you think about him, for sure.
Yeah, like you mentioned earlier,
I think
it lines up more with what Brian Henson has been doing with the Happy Time Murders type movie.
Yeah.
Which, again, is not our favorite Muppet stuff.
No.
Even back in the 70s. But
it does make it unfair to be like, Jim Henson would never do this. Because there's evidence that he would and indeed wanted to and hunted down opportunities to do this kind of thing all the time.
Yeah, and a lot of it does come from that overcorrection of like, we're not just for kids. Look at it, we can talk about sex.
Yeah. Maybe the best place for them was to be both for kids and adults.
Yes, absolutely.
That is what
they figured it out. And that's what we'll talk about next week. But before we get to the Muppet Show, we need to talk a little bit more about our Muppets of the Week.
I like the Muppets of the Week's clip that I use because it goes do-do-do-do-do-do, and it sounds like it's the Muppet of the Week.
Oh, I never even put that together.
That's what I always sing to myself. Now, listener, you will too.
So our Muppets of the Week this week are the Muppets we've been talking about all episode. And so there's not a ton to say that we haven't already said about these guys because this is their only appearances outside of the end of the Rainbow Connection section of the Muppet movie. But I wanted to sort of give respect to the individual characters we get to see and to their performers because we won't really get a chance to talk about them ever again. So this is our one and only shot.
And are they in the 30 year reunion special?
Not that I saw. I don't believe they are. I think the Rainbow Connection thing is the only time they show up again. So I guess before we go one by one here, did you have a favorite? I think I know the answer.
I think Scred has to be like, he is the breakout character of this. So I would say him, maybe just by the boon of him being the most fleshed out.
Yeah.
The other ones didn't do anything for me, especially the Queen and Plubis. Like, they both kind of suck. But the Mighty Favog is also very good. He's just a little bit more limited in what he can do. Yeah,
and sort of a one-note joke of sacrifices and a punchline.
Did you have a favorite, or did you hate them all?
I definitely did not hate them all. I think Scred is obviously my favorite as well. He's just, I think Jerry Nelson is at the top of his game. I think the puppet is great. I think the characterizations they give him outside of the sketches are pretty solid. And I don't dislike Plubis as much as you do. So I would say, like, I think Favog is probably my second, but Plubis is a close third.
Then the women, boo.
The women are just the women characters in this are just not handled very well. They're either just a sex symbol or like a nagging wife character.
Yes, I don't think that the SNL writers' room was the bastion of women's rights or anything like that.
No, not at all. But we have King Plubis, who is performed by Jim Henson, as we mentioned earlier. He sounds a lot like a mixture of like Gosh Posh and Ralph. It's the gravelly Jim Henson voice that he has.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's a thing that I don't know. I didn't notice in any of these episodes, but in the closing credits of one SNL broadcast, John Belushi can be seen pulling a knife on Plubis.
I read that as well, but I don't know when that would have happened.
Yeah, I couldn't find any more reference for when that happens, but
and I don't really even know what that means.
I don't know either.
It sounds alarming.
Yeah. And then we have the Mighty Favog, who is performed by Frank Oz. So on Muppet Wiki, it said the character's name came from a nickname given by the Muppet performers to the clock in the green room on the Ed Sullivan Show. The Muppeteers would playfully pray to the clock that they would not be bumped if the show ran long. So I guess they just like needed a name for a deity, and the Mighty Favog became the nonsense word for that.
Yes, so they would like pray to this clock and call it the Mighty Favog.
That's
is that what?
I mean, again, there's very little information on that, but it seems like that is the case. So they'd be like, "Oh, Mighty Favog, please don't let us get bumped this week," which is exciting because it makes me think that like, oh, they must have been bumped multiple times for that to be a bit. So there must be like Ed Sullivan things where he was just like, "And today we'll have the Muppets." Oh, never mind, we don't have time for them.
Sorry to the Muppets. Yeah.
And we have Queen Puta, who is played by Alice Tweedy, who was a puppeteer, an actress, and singer. She wouldn't do a lot more with the Muppets, but she would go on to help out with Lamb Chop. She would do some Rankin and Bass things and also work with Perry Como. So just kind of a performer who happened, I guess, like because they didn't have a lot of women on the staff with the Muppets, they needed a woman that they knew to help them out. We then have also, we have Scred, obviously played by Jerry Nelson. Yeah, again, most of these puppets, there's not much to say about them beyond what we've already talked about, but I think it's worth noting, again, Jerry Nelson is great. Sam doesn't always like a lot of his more sweet characters, but I think you're a big fan of Count and Scred, so there's some love for Jerry Nelson in your heart.
I think he's got a really great voice. I just think he comes across as phony when he's trying to be sweet. But he doesn't as Scred, which is why I thought it was the Gonzo. Dave Goles, is that his name?
Yes.
Because he just seems so much like Gonzo. He's like a cute weirdo who everybody loves, like the same character basically, except not. I mean, Gonzo's extremely horny too, so never mind.
We then have Vaz, who is played by Fran Brill for most of her run. As we mentioned in her first appearance, she's performed by Rhonda Handsome. But yeah, Fran Brill is Prairie Dawn and Zoe on Sesame Street. It doesn't do a lot of other like Muppet things outside of Sesame Street, really. She was hired for the Great Santa Claus Switch, so she obviously is still working with the Muppets. But I think, much like Carol Spinney, when you're hired to work on Sesame Street, you kind of get really busy with Sesame Street. So,
and she only has like 3 lines across the whole thing, basically.
Yes.
So
she's mostly just there to be hit on by Plubis. We then have somebody who I think maybe even has less lines and less appearances, which is Whis, played by Richard Hunt, who is the Craterhead son of Plubis and Puta. Again, not much of a character there to talk about, but I think it's worth giving Richard Hunt his props for playing a pretty good role that maybe is based on him from what we heard during our Brian K. Jones episode.
Yeah. And he sounds just like Janice also. And he's a great puppet. I like his little nose hairs.
He's a really solid design that would fit into something more like Labyrinth or Dark Crystal. And then the only 2 other characters that get their own wiki pages are a couple other side characters. One is the Gligs, which are the little food / source of clothing that are kind of like chickens. Apparently Frank Oz does the screaming voice of the Glig when it is being sacrificed. And then the other weird character that, out of all of these characters, goes on to do more than any of them is Food, which is performed by Frank Oz.
Oh, I forgot about Food. I liked Food.
So Food is a puppet in one of the sketches during the Christmas party that's just this weird koosh ball looking thing that has a little face on it. It's referred to as Food, but you don't really know.
He counts like a living bloomin' onion from Outback Steakhouse.
Not a sponsor. But he just exists on a little platter to be eaten. Like Plubis even like rips off one of his little appendages to take a bite out of. But Food will come back multiple times.
What?
We will see Food as a trumpet player in a 4th season episode of The Muppet Show.
Okay.
He will also come back as a background creature in the 1st season of Fraggle Rock. And then the puppet that was used as Food is recycled as Zsa Zsa Pork Mustard, a contestant in the Miss Galaxy pageant sketch from the Jim Henson Hour, and then is used again in the 2nd episode of the Jim Henson Hour as an undersea creature.
What the hell? It's the most famous of all the Gorch Muppets.
Secret star, Food.
Oh yeah, I liked him a lot. Just a little guy begging them to eat him.
Yeah, I'm happy for Food, that Food gets to live on, and I totally understand also why this would be a puppet that could be used as an undersea creature or an alien thing, because it's just like it's not a shape that is recognizable as anything.
Looking at there's a picture of him on Muppet Wiki, and in the sketch where he first appears, Plubis pulls a piece of him off, and then in the picture, the piece of him is still off. They didn't ever glue it back on.
I was wondering about that because it does look like he actually rips off a piece of him.
I think that that was probably the intention, was that they could rip him apart if they got around to it.
Wild.
But
if you're gonna go back and watch any of these, like I said, like they're all on Peacock, so you can check out these episodes. You have to like skim through to actually find the Gorch sketches. But I think the Christmas party one with Candace Bergen, and then any of the like latter half of like the ones with Lily Tomlin or Gilda Radner are all like worth checking out. And because the other ones aren't very long and wouldn't take that long for you to watch, I would say I recommend checking these out. And like you said earlier, it's sort of like a time capsule that's interesting to take a look back on and understand not only what was happening with the Muppets at this time, but also what's sort of happening in comedy at this time.
It's also like when you hear about the Muppets on SNL, it's like, oh, they flopped and everybody hated them.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see that they knew that they flopped and everybody hated them, and like to see them react to that.
It makes me wonder what would have happened had they not gotten the Muppet Show at this time, because I think obviously they're able to pivot to this like downtrodden, we're leaving the show kind of story because they know they are leaving to go do a cool thing. But if they were just like not succeeding there, the styles weren't mixing well, and they were actually just getting fired or canceled from SNL, would they have gone this route of like commenting on it, or would they have just disappeared?
Would they have been genuinely sad
Yes.
and just left? Yeah.
We'll never know. Unless we ever get to have Frank Oz on this podcast, and then we'll ask him.
Yeah, please.
It'll be like a 6-hour
Please, sir.
podcast. We have like all these questions.
He wouldn't let us talk to him for 6 hours.
No, but I feel like that's what would be satisfying for us, is if we got 6 hours of questioning Frank Oz. If you know Frank Oz, don't tell him we said that. We will take 5 minutes.
Yeah, if you are Frank Oz, sorry, we won't really do it to you.
So besides all of these episodes of SNL that you've been watching this week, Sam, have you watched any other non-Muppet things?
I sure did. One thing I watched was Dante's Peak. Have you ever seen that?
I mean, yeah, like however many years ago it came out.
I really liked it. I think so. I was watching it and looking at the Rotten Tomatoes score, and it's like 26. I feel like there are so many movies back then that have like great practical effects, like a simple little storyline, great action. People just didn't know back then like what they had. I feel like Dante's Peak nowadays, that's an 80% easily to me. But anyway,
I was a Volcano kid.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, I liked Volcano better when those two came out.
Oh, I thought you meant you liked volcanoes in general.
Yeah, I was a volcano kid. Some kids like dinosaurs. I like volcanoes.
Well, I mean, kids like volcanoes.
No, I was out of the two movies that came out of Dante's Peak and Volcano, I chose Volcano as the one I liked.
I've never seen that one, and I'd never seen Dante's Peak until the other day. But it's great. It's goofy. It's B-movie-y. It's James Bond and Sarah Connor from Terminator outrunning lava. It's good. But then I also watched, here's the nerdiest thing ever, the new He-Man cartoon on Netflix.
Any good?
Masters of the Universe Revelations. Yeah, I actually liked it quite a bit. The first episode is written by Kevin Smith and sucks.
Well, didn't he like produce the whole thing?
Yeah.
Oh.
But I think he only wrote the first episode.
Gotcha.
He may have written the last one. I forgot to keep checking who was writing them because I was like, if this is another Kevin Smith one, I can't watch it. And then it wasn't. So the first episode, though, is like corny on purpose. And then at the end, spoiler alert, He-Man explodes and is dead. And the whole, it's only like the first part of a season, so it doesn't end on like a satisfying note or anything like that. But it's like pretty good for what it is, I think. I am a huge He-Man fan for some reason. It's like my cousins played with He-Man toys when I was little. I have cousins who are a lot older than me. So like when we were born, like me and you, He-Man was already over, basically.
I
like,
also
replaced by...
have the exact same memory of my cousins having the toys.
Yeah. And they're cool. Like I got a bunch of them hand-me-down, and like obviously the legs have broken off of them because they're held together with a rubber band and like all the pieces are missing and stuff. But I love those things. They're like those and Ninja Turtles are like this weird brief period where kids' toys were kind of like art toys almost in a way. And I just think they're so weird and cool. But anyway, I watched it. I liked it. Everybody, like the He-Man community is in an uproar because they made Teela, who's like the female character on He-Man, like the only one basically, the hero, and they put pants on her. So everyone's like, this is a scheme to destroy manhood. Like they're trying to brainwash kids. And they like changed the race of some characters, and it's like, whoa, they're taking away all of our white role models and stuff like that. So just the nastiest people in the world.
Oh yeah,
who can't understand anything about how anything works, but has good reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. So people must like it. Okay, and I enjoyed it. It's a fun, goofy little thing. And if you know a lot about He-Man, also, it's kind of like, oh yeah, I know what that is. I wouldn't recommend it necessarily, but if you have even a little inkling of an interest in He-Man, I think it was pretty good.
Nice. Yeah, it has a very interesting cast.
Sarah Michelle Gellar is Tila.
Kevin Conroy.
And the Joker.
Mark Hamill.
What's his name? Mark Hamill. Yeah, as Skeletor, basically just sounding exactly like the Joker.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's basically just like the perfect mix of old Skeletor and the Joker.
But it's a fun Skeletor. He has a very good time being evil, which is fun. It's not good, but it's also not bad.
All right. This week, I was watching a lot of different things and catching up on new things. So I've been reading a book called Dread Nation, which is a very good book. I'm only like halfway through it, but it's about basically zombies after the Civil War.
Oh.
Like it's a zombie story set in the era of the Civil War, and it's way more interesting than the way I just described it. There's a lot more interesting things going on, and but also I've been watching Behind the Attraction on Disney Plus, which is their new series. It's very good. It's a little bit. I wouldn't say a little bit. It's a lot of it high energy. And you kind of can't watch it passively because it's just like hitting you in the face with graphics and songs. And it's just like, it's very similar to those like Toys That Made Us documentaries on Netflix.
Yeah.
Right. In that it's just like nonstop gags and visual things to like, which is, I think, fine. And if you're like in the mood for that kind of thing, it's very good. And there's like a lot of very interesting things about the Disney parks in there, but it is a lot. I tried to like do some stuff on my computer while watching an episode last night, and it was a lot. It was overwhelming.
I always wonder who that kind of stuff is for, because it seems like it makes sense, like if it's on cable and you're like skimming past and you're like, oh, this is yelling at me, I should stop and watch this. But if you've made the choice to watch it, I feel like they should do you the favor of it being like a little calmer.
Yeah.
Like they don't need to pull you in.
Yeah. And I think for the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror episode specifically was one where I was just like, I need you to slow down because I am aging and my attention span is different now. I'd like a slower show, please. But the ones
actually have an attention span.
Yes.
So, yeah.
But the ones about Jungle Cruise and Star Tours are both really interesting and good. So highly recommend the show.
Cool.
But again, just a fair warning, it will be a little bit high energy for you.
Yeah.
And then the other two things that I've been watching are I finally decided to catch up on Lego Masters, which is that like reality competition show about building Legos, and they just like they're in season 2 right now. So I was like, I should catch up and give that a go because I like Lego a lot, but I had not really watched that show, and it's good. It's a good reality competition show. There's like any of those types of things. Sometimes there is people who are dicks and are conniving and trying to like root for the other people to fail, which is like my least favorite thing.
There's evil Lego Masters?
Yeah, well, there's just very cocky Lego Masters who think like they're the best and everyone else sucks, and they're like rooting for other people to fail. And I'm like, oh no, the best reality shows are when people like are helping each other, like Bake Off or something, where it's like everyone's very sweet to each other, and it's just like we're all trying our best.
You're all playing with Legos, so calm down.
Yeah, no, and there's some teams like that in the second season as well, but that's how they cast it. They know that those people are going to be causing trouble. But yeah, the other season 2 that I've been watching is Ted Lasso season 2 started this week.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like the best show on television. So yeah, obviously super into watching that. But it comes out week to week, so I've only seen the first episode of season 2 at this point. But yeah, again, watched a lot of stuff this week, reading a lot of stuff this week. And I will be watching a lot more and reading a lot more Muppet stuff next week and during our little week off vacation time, because we are going to prepare to watch The Muppet Show. So if you want to watch The Muppet Show with us, we're going to be covering 5 episodes at a time. That is the plan as of now. Who knows? That might change. It's what we're doing now, and we'll see how that goes and if it works for us. But the first 5 episodes obviously are all on Disney Plus now, so you can go ahead and give those a watch. And we will be back in a couple weeks to talk about The Muppet Show.
Ooh, I'm excited.
Yeah, no.
I finally get to see all my little friends again.
Before we go, we need to thank our friend Tuna for creating the music for this podcast and Cassie Wilson for singing our theme song. You can follow this podcast on Twitter at CommitmentPod, where you can find the playlist of things we're going to watch for each episode, which is usually like TV appearances and stuff. And obviously we can't tweet out like Disney Plus. So we will let you know what we're going to watch, but it won't always have a link.
Sometimes you might get confused and not watch everything. And you know what? That's okay too.
But if you are Frank Oz and you want to come and be on a 6-hour podcast with us, you can contact us at our email address, which is mail@commitment.com. And if you're not Frank Oz, you can also reach out there. But you can follow me on Twitter at Matthew Gatos.
And I'm at Slam Schultz.
And as always, keep believing.
Keep pretending.